Welcome back to the next episode in the series I'm calling My AI Journey. This one that's going to follow and the video that's after that, so it's going to be a two-parter here. These two videos are two parts of a talk that I did for a mastermind that we had recently, about a month or so ago. And so what you'll hear in both of these videos is kind of the lay of the landscape for what's happening in AI that we're seeing, as well as some really practical tips and strategies that can help you get started and can help your people inside your organization too. So I hope you enjoy this. If you need more information, some of the slides or slide deck or anything like that, just drop me a comment down below and I'll be glad to help you out. So enjoy the talks. All right, this is the approaching wave, the implications and strategies for AI. And this is going to be part two. If you missed the first part, you can go find that video here on my channel. This is going to be part two, so we're going to pick it up where we left off last time. We talked about the landscape and of AI, what's happening nationally as well as in my local area, just to give you an example. And so we talked a lot about the landscape, about how to get yourself ready. We're going to talk a little bit more detailed today in this video about what some of those practical steps are and some of the frameworks that we've seen that are working with our clients. So in this session, I'll be talking about the 4 pillars. These are the implementation framework pieces that we see really help you get your mind wrapped around what you can do and how you would approach this. And so we'll talk more about that. And then think about your own organization. What can you do? What's your AI strategy look like? It needs to be something that fits with your business strategy, with your organizational strategy. It shouldn't be somebody else's. It should be one that's tailored and fit for you. And so if you need help with what that looks like, or if you're not really sure, or maybe you're even unsure about what your business strategy is, I do a lot of that work with clients, helping them understand what their strategy is. I have a strategic advising program where I have a monthly call with you and help you work out what your strategy is and how to implement that, or even to do strategic ideation with you to help you solve problems. I do a lot of strategy work, and this falls under that umbrella of strategy, is figuring out how does AI fit into your overall organizational strategy. So we'll talk a little bit about that and wrap it up there. What are these different pillars of successful AI implementation? What do they look like? First of all, and I know I said this in the first video and spent quite a bit of time talking about it, to understand and have a lot of clarity around your strategy. Okay, so what is the purpose for implementing AI to begin with? What's the real reason why you have decided to implement AI? And if you know that very clearly, the problem you're trying to solve and the expected ROI that you hope to get out of it, when you can do that, what problem you're trying to solve, then it's going to be so much easier to go find the right solution and to implement it and then to measure success for putting that system in. Okay, so it's not AI just for the sake of AI. It's really understanding what business problem this is trying to solve for me. And I would say also start really clear and focused and start really small. Okay, pick a really small process to work on first. Speaking of process, the thing that we recommend is kind of this 3-step approach, which is to map out your current process first, then figure out ways to improve that process and to make it as clean and as productive as possible. Then you can start to automate or augment it with AI. Just had this conversation yesterday with a client, somebody who's thinking about AI and other systems, and that's kind of what got the conversation started. But then as they jumped into it, they're, wow, we have a lot of process work to do before we ever get to the point of working on implementing some sort of AI or some sort of new technology. And I said, yeah, it's a good place to start. It's a good thing to do anyway, whether you're doing AI or not. Mike and I have done a lot of process improvement work in our past. And so we have a lot of recommendations and a lot of ways we can help you there, just to understand how to map out the process and then how to start to improve that. Okay, take your current processes, map those out, clean those up before you do anything else. The third one, people and culture. You really got to get this pillar right in your AI implementation plan. Find the people that can be the early champions, those that can lead the change, and spend time training them. Make sure that they know their role. They are equipped to do it. They have the support and the training to do it. Find some early adopters who are willing to go through that change curve first, like we talked about in the last video. If you didn't see that, go back to the other video. And toward the last few minutes of that video, I'll talk about the innovation curve and where people fall on that. When you invest in those people, it works really, really well. I know that I played this role for a previous company that was launching a huge innovation culture initiative. And of course, I was an early adopter, being creative first voice. And my boss at the time kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, would you like to lead this effort for the company?" And of course, I said yes. And I became the champion. That was actually my title, Innovation Champion. And really helped lead that effort, was given the space and the freedom, and also given the training that I needed to be able to help lead that effort. And it was a successful model. And we've seen that work in other places, in other ways as well, getting the people right and also establishing the right culture. It really has to be a little bit of an innovation mindset that people have to have, and you have to empower that. If that's something that you need help with or you'd like to have some conversations around, I'd love to have that conversation as well, just to share with you my experience and also how we've helped other companies do this. And then last but not least is the technology enablement. I think I mentioned this in the previous video. Start small. Find something really small, start there first, find a very specific use case, and then scale up what works. If you start small, you can iterate, you can change, you can prototype and not have a lot of risk involved. And then when you figure out what works, now you can start to take that and scale that into the rest of the organization. Use a pilot, use a prototype, use a test, whatever word you want to call it. I'm fine with it. Just start small, learn from it, let your people learn from it, and then as everyone starts to learn, then they start to get a little bit more confidence. Now it can start to scale into the rest of the organization. I know this sort of approach works because I've used it with approaches when I was in the corporate world. I've used it in the nonprofit world, and I've helped clients do this as well. Just make sure you got your strategy right. Let's clean up the processes. Let's make sure we got the right people in place. Now let's really start to go forward into a new solution, in this case, a technology solution. Okay, this is a great way to start. This is exactly what I would recommend to clients. If you're going to go into this AI implementation, this is a good way to do it. Okay. So one of the things that we like to recommend, if we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that process pillar that I talked about, where our name comes from for our company, D4 Concepts. The D4 stands for these 4 Ds that we use, that they find their roots in design thinking. So if you're familiar with that methodology, some of these will look very familiar to you. If you're familiar with process improvement or continuous improvement, you may see some overlap here for those as well. We feel these work in either case. So if I'm trying to create something new or design something new, I can use these 4 Ds. If I'm just trying to improve a process or do some sort of continuous improvement project, these 4 Ds work as well there. And that's why we like them. That's why we use them. And we call this the D4 framework. So the first thing we want to do is start with some definitions. Define the problem, the issue, the opportunity that you have, and what that desired outcome is. We typically walk a client through with some sort of scope document. Let's really scope in exactly what it is we're working on. What do we hope to accomplish? What's the problem we're trying to address? After we have a very clear answer for that, then we can start to go out and learn what we don't know. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of thinking they know everything there is to know about the problem, and we start designing solutions around it and then come to find out we don't know everything, so now we got to back up and go back to a previous part of the project and restart. I like doing this where we go out and do some discovery work first. Let's talk to some other people. Let's bring some people into the room that haven't been here before. If it's customer facing, let's go out and actually talk to customers. Let's go scour the internet. Let's go do a deep thinking project on GPT and give it some really specific parameters and let it go find some new information. There's all different ways to do this now, to go out and discover the information, but you really want to discover as much background information as you can. And then you want to map out the current process as it currently works. Don't start with the future process. Start with your current process and map it out completely first. You want to get really clear on what that current process is in its current state. Then you can go back and you can start to identify what are the pain points, where are the places where the process really slows down, where does it get bottlenecked, what takes too long in the process, are there duplicate steps in the process, where's there a wasted activity or a wasted effort inside of that process. Then you can start to go back and identify what those pain points are. That's kind of the discovery phase. Then once we move out of the discovery phase, we have all that information. Now we can start to go into the design phase. Design is where we start to improve and optimize the process. Now that we know what the pain points are, now that we know what the failure points are, now we can start to design something new. When you start to do this is all about brainstorming. This is creating new ideas. This is, hey, what if we did this? Or what if we combine those two steps? Or what if we put a new system in here? You can start to really design what that new process looks like. Once I've got that design locked in and everybody's agreed upon it, now we can start to say, okay, how do we implement this new process? And then beyond that, how do we start to implement new technologies, new solutions, in this case, AI? How do I start to automate parts of this? How do I start to augment what the people are doing with something that AI can do for them? That's when you really start to have a more robust solution, and that's how you can have an AI-enabled workflow, or that's how you can put AI in place inside of an organization or inside of a business process, is just following these 4 steps. You're going to define what's the business problem we're trying to address. Let's map out the current state. Let's talk to everybody around it. Let's make sure that we got a good picture of what the current state of it is and where the pain points are. Now we can start to design the new process. And last but not least, we can start to implement that. We can start to run a pilot or a test of it. Let's get other people familiar with it. And then once we do, now we can scale it up. We can introduce it to the rest of the organization, or perhaps we can just take and repeat this process with other people, with other processes inside the organization. So this is really a great approach. It's one that we've used for years and we've helped other people with. It's really just using the D4 framework to improve a process or to introduce a new process. It works for that as well. What are some of the ways that you could see yourself using this framework to go after an AI opportunity or a new process inside of your organization? What could give your company a 90-day win? You can leave a comment down below. You can reach out to me and ask me this question, or you can share with me your answer as well. When you think through your organization, what are some processes that seem broken or seem outdated, or something that is just you find that a lot of people are complaining about? So some of the example ideas that we talked about at the Mastermind event is some sort of automatic document preparation. Is there some sort of way you can eliminate manual data entry, or formatting a document, or formatting a spreadsheet? Is there some sort of way that you could just put a little bit of a new process in place, introduce AI into that, and it just helps people produce the documents that they already have? How can you get them to produce them faster and with less human involvement? Maybe it's about creating a team co-pilot, finding some AI assistants, some LLMs, or some sort of pre-programmed way to put those in place where it can repeat the same sort of feedback, or can generate information and content for you in some sort of automated way. One of the ones I like to use is within ChatGPT, you have the feature of a custom GPT. I've got a different video about that if you go check it out on my channel. It really is just a way to kind of put some presets in of a process you want it to follow, and you can kick off that process with just one prompt, and it can start to generate something for you in a multi-step process, and you can share with other people too. I've got some custom GPTs that I shared with Mike, and he can use them as well. So it's set up to do one specific thing. So for instance, one of those is a lead researcher. We get somebody to contact us, or somebody that gets referred to us in our biz dev process, and it looks like it could be a lead, could be a new client for us. Previously, if you go back a couple of years ago, we would take that person, we would try to find out information about them on LinkedIn. We would see where they worked before, what their background is, learn just a little bit about them so that when we make a call or when we're on a strategy call with that person, we know a little bit about them and their background and their company and their situation. Some of that research sometimes would take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And you think it's not a lot of time. Yeah, but if you do it 100 times a year, suddenly it's a lot of time. What I do is I set up a custom GPT that does the research for me. I can put in just a couple of bits of information about the person, just whatever I know, and it will go through and it will generate this 2-page report about that person according to the characteristics or the things that I'm looking for in our sales process to see if it'd be a good fit for us. And it really helps me do the research on a person much faster than I would do previously. That's the way I can kind of create this little co-pilot or this custom GPT that can kind of help me do that on a regular basis, a repeated basis. Another example could be using your existing data, just analyzing it and leveraging it a little bit differently so that you can kind of have predictive insights or a little bit more information about the future. I know we have one client type that we work a lot with that is really trying to figure out how to do capacity planning. And I've already started to look into how I can use AI solutions to help them solve that problem in a much easier way than what they've done before. And so I'm using AI to try to figure out how to solve this business problem for a lot of our clients. So there's all sorts of ways. If you start to think about your organization, what is it something repetitive or what is something that you felt your organization has been held back from for a long time? This seems to be an obstacle or hurdle and we can't ever get past it, or it's a bottleneck inside of our organization. Those are prime opportunities for you to look at as an AI play or as an AI implementation project coming up in this next year. Okay. If you think about this as a good AI readiness checklist, these are some of the kinds of things that we recommend and that we're having conversations with people about. So if you think about the segment of your business around strategy, so what is the strategy and how do you set a goal for it? Your goal is you need to define some sort of ROI, some sort of vision for what you want this AI process or implementation to do for you. So the very first place to start is if you think about your business strategy, come up with a really clear ROI that's going to drive your AI project. And then process. So the first thing you want to think there is, do we currently have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, or some sort of notes for how to do this particular process? Do we have a flow chart or just some sort of basic workflow diagram that shows us how the work gets done? If not, that's going to be your process piece to do first. We have a process that we take people through called the process first sprint. It could be anywhere from 30 to 90 days, typically a couple of months. We can help you figure out all those 4 or 5 steps that you need to take to optimize your process. Okay. Data. If you think about the data this process is going to need, if you're going to implement AI, you've got to have clean and accessible data. It's got to be both. If your data is accessible but it's not clean, it's not going to work. Or you say, I've got clean data, but it's in a system that I can't attach to or get any information out of, that doesn't help you either, right? It's got to be clean and accessible. People. We talked about people before in the last video about change management, and we talked about it here about being one of the 4 pillars. People. You've got to have good people involved, the right people involved on the project. You've got to have them trained, and you got to onboard them onto the project. I would say also you have to give them the time in their schedule to be able to participate in the project. I know I've worked with teams before, and I had to go to senior VPs or senior executives and say, look, I need this person to work on my team, but you're going to have to free up at least 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week for them to be on my team, because if they don't have the time to do it, or if their boss says it's not a priority, then we know how that's going to go, right? If it's not a priority, then it's just not going to happen. Find some AI champions, some early adopters. Create a little team or a little internal team that's going to be the first movers on this thing. So that's just some ideas there for how to address the people issue. And then the last one is a pilot. Once you've got those pieces in place, let's start small. Let's do something that we know that we can win at or that we can learn something from. Let's start there first. And I would say give yourself a window of time. We're going to run this for 90 days or maybe 60 days, depending on how important or how small the process is. You may have to adjust that timeline, but find a way that you can do it for a short period of time and let it run through a few times, let it go through a few iterations, let people experience it a few times, and then pause and go measure your success, go talk to the people, find out what works, what doesn't. I've seen senior leaders just get really excited about moving on to the next thing. And once they run this little pilot and it runs through one time successfully, they're off to that. They're on to something else. And then it breaks. And then a couple of months later, we come back and say, hey, how come it's broken? It's because we didn't take the time to really do the test fully and to talk to everyone to make sure that everything was working fine. That really is an important part of this, is to run that pilot for a period of time, iterate, improve, and then launch and scale to the rest of the organization. All right, so here's a good closing thought for you as you think about AI implementation across these two videos, this session that I did for our mastermind group. Before you spend $1 on AI, make sure it will actually work for your business goals. Okay, take the time to be clear on what you expect to happen, what problem you're trying to address, what opportunity you're going after. Make sure you have that clarity first. Then you can start to spend the time, the effort to delegate the people who are going to be able to help you in this project and to implement the new technology and to start to automate and start to see those improvements. But just make sure that you have that clarity first. And if that's something you struggle with or you can't figure out, just get in contact with me. I would love to be able to help you do that. I do strategy days all the time for clients and helping them think clearly through what's the most important things. Let's build a plan. Let's start to execute against the plan. Let's start to see movement and momentum. So hopefully this session has been helpful for you and is starting to give you some things to start to think about your own implementation of AI inside of your organization. When you get really clear on what you want it to accomplish, when you get really clear on the business problem you're trying to solve, you're already halfway there. Okay? Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, give it a thumbs up and a like. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can get future updates about AI and what I'm seeing and learning and how I'm helping some other people along the way. And leave a comment, get in touch with us if you would like help on your AI project or your AI strategy in the coming months.